Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I wanted to talk about how neurotic somebody is and kind of more like how neurotic are you. I'm kind of aiming it towards the particular viewer so that you guys can almost use this as a guide. Now, before we get into it, a couple things to note. Being neurotic is a personality tendency. It's not a diagnostic impression. Is it studied heavily in psychology? Yes. We had to study assessments of personality and the main assessments, actually, mainly from a clinical standpoint, extensively. Most doctoral programs in psychology, you have to get these things your postdoc is always going to be about this stuff as well. But even in the program, one of the most things that we cover is assessment. So this is assessment, but it's not diagnostic, if that makes sense. Because there's sometimes like IQ testing is assessment based, but it's not diagnostic. However, borderline is both assessment and diagnostic. We'll touch on that another day to get to the details of it. But the best way to put it is, how does this correlate to diagnostic? It's strongly related to depression, PTSD, generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, avoidant personality disorder, sometimes antisocial personality disorder, even though it's not presenting that way, usually inwardly. Not always, because some people who have antisocial personality disorder are not very neurotic at all. We're not going to get into those details because personality disorders can be very confusing for a lot of people. I specialize in it, but we're not going to talk about it today. So basically, you can be high in being neurotic without having a mental diagnostic impression. However, typically you do. Typically, okay? So this is not a official personality inventory. You guys know that. I'm not assessing you. It's a YouTube video. I can't. These assessments take a very long time and they need to be done in a, very specific way. This is not an assessment. You guys know that. I'm just saying it just to cover myself, but we're going to go over and talk about it so that you guys know. And first, we're going to touch quickly, why is it important? People who are neurotic do struggle in relationships. They're one of the highest individuals who struggle with holding long-term relationships. They have a higher divorce rate, breakup rate. They have a more difficult time socializing with people. And so understanding how neurotic you are is one of the first steps to resolving it. And yes, at one point, I'm going to make a video how to reduce these things. But first, you guys need to know if this applies to you, okay? So what are some of the aspects of someone being neurotic? The very first one is frequent anxiety or worry, and we're going to talk about it in a couple ways to break it up because I think it's important, because frequent anxiety and worry can mean a couple things, okay? You might feel like you're on the edge or uncomfortable without a clear reason. Now, you might not even be aware that you feel like that because sometimes people who especially have had a lot of trauma, they don't realize that this is what's happening. I'm going to give a couple examples that I've seen with my patients. I'm obviously not giving you real aspects because obviously confidentiality, but just examples of what I've seen. Let's say there's a patient who admits that they sweat constantly. Like they almost always sweat, even if it's cold, even if it's hot, they don't know why. And actually that's a sign of anxiety. And it's sometimes to such a point, let's say his shirt gets like wet and he doesn't know why he's always sweating all the time, but he doesn't realize, because he's been suppressing his feelings so much, he doesn't necessarily recognize that it's because he's very anxious all the time. And by resolving some of those things and tackling some of those triggers and understanding where it comes from, it's coming a lot from childhood, depending on how you see it. I'm a psychodynamic therapist, so I go from that angle, and a lot of times understanding where a lot of these things come from, automatically our brain can sometimes resolve some of these things. And so by him, basically by using free association and other techniques, the patient is able to remove himself from some of those symptoms slowly but significantly. And that's an example. Another way you can see it is some patients have mentioned they almost feel like a heaviness in their chest is how they described it. Some to the point where they wake up, like they are sleeping and they wake up feeling that they were pushing their chest against their mattress because it was bothering them so much. And once you clear medical issues and you see, okay, there's nothing medically wrong in terms of physically, it's anxiety. And that can be sometimes interesting because a lot of times it feels so physical, they're not even aware of it. So just something to keep in mind. The next one is you might anticipate worst case scenarios, or you might believe something about someone that you have no proof of. And I know a lot of you guys do it because you guys do it to me all the time. You guys may anticipate something that's not there, and you believe it so strongly to be there. Another one is small uncertainties make you feel stressed. Small uncertainties is based on the general population, okay? So an example could be, let's say you're in school and you sent an email to your professor and your professor hasn't answered in a couple days. Some people might think that's just because some professors are not good with answering emails. Some people might think that, okay, I'll just wait until I see them in class, or it's just taking a while. Professors are busy. But maybe you think, okay, did I do something wrong? Did I do something to the professor? Maybe the professor doesn't like me. The professor prefers other students over me. This is why I'm failing. This is kind of like where some of these spirals start going deeper and deeper and deeper, and why those uncertainties are occurring. Okay, the next one is strong emotional reactions. I think that this one is one of the main reasons why being around someone who's neurotic can be difficult. And I'm saying this because I want to help, and I really try to be kind to you guys, and I want to help you guys understand, but I also don't want to lie to you. Strong emotional reactions are incredibly difficult for the other person, the receiver, to understand what's happening. And it's not that it's your fault, but it's very challenging to navigate, because sometimes what happens is you have a reaction for something that's not happening. And so the other person has no clear idea of what you're thinking about. And because you're having a strong emotional reaction, a lot of times you guys believe that this is real, in the sense you believe that this did happen or that this did occur, and it can be really overwhelming. And you might feel emotions more intensely than others seem to feel. You may take minor setbacks as incredibly overwhelming and discouraging. It may take you longer to calm down after stress. And I do want to let you guys know a lot of this does come from trauma, so I'm not discouraging that, okay? A strong emotional reaction can sometimes make it so difficult that it can blur the reality of what's happening. They live in this constant cycle. They do it all the time because they are not facing the anxiety that they're feeling. The next one is mood swings. Your mood can shift very quickly. You might be fine at one point, then you might be sad at one point, then you might be angry at one point, and you might feel like your emotions are actually less stable. And sometimes you're wishing that they were a little bit more stable. You might be sensitive to criticism and rejection. You might take things very personally. You might replay conversations and worry about what you said. Even mild feedback can really bother you. And this is dependent, because I want to explain something. People who are under extreme stress, who are not neurotic, might present themselves more neurotic because of being extremely stressed. And so if you feel like you're neurotic only some of the time, you might want to look at the fact that you might have a very, very stressful job. My significant other, he works in finance, and he can act more neurotic when he has a lot of stress at work, because it's just incredibly stressful. He might be just so many things, he becomes very hypervigilant. And me, of course, as well. When I'm under stress, I can be a little bit more hypervigilant as well. And it can be overwhelming for the person experiencing it. So if anyone is just neurotic a lot of the time, my heart does go out to you, because I know it's a lot. The next one is overthinking. You might have some sort of rumination. You might replay past events continuously. You might get stuck analyzing. What if I did this? What if something like this happened? And it's hard to turn off your thoughts. The next one is you might have a lot of self-doubt and insecurity. Now, this one particularly does not happen if you are a person who's high stressed, right? If you're high stressed, you'll only pick up some of these traits. You won't go with the overthinking, the self-doubt. You won't have those things, right? A person who is neurotic presenting without the stress will most likely have these ones. So self-doubt, you might question your decisions. You might question whether you're good enough. You may compare yourself to other people. The next one is irritability and frustration. You might get annoyed more easily than others. Small inconveniences to some extent may trigger you disproportionately from your perspective and from others. You might be stress sensitive. Okay, so people who are neurotic are actually more stress sensitive than others. They're less resilient, and that's okay. And it can be resolved if that's what you want, but it's something to keep in mind. You may be more overwhelmed faster, and that's why some people who are neurotic sometimes struggle with employment to some extent. And one of you guys requested the employment video. I have completed it. I don't know when I'm going to submit it. You might have already seen it, because I don't know when these things go in order, but I have remembered that one, okay? And you might avoid situations because they're emotionally taxing. You might have physical symptoms like headaches, tension, trouble sleeping, because your body will react to your own neurotic aspects, not the attribute itself, but the thoughts that you have based on that, which will create these symptoms. You may seek reassurance or validation. You may seek reassurance in such a way that it may actually hurt you to some extent. And you may worry about relationships or other people more than another person does, which can create more issues. Now, there is some important context. Everybody has some aspects of being neurotic. It is a normal human trait. However, the frequency and the way it interferes with your life is what signifies as someone being considered high in, like, it's someone who is neurotic, right? Someone who is prominently neurotic is a better way to put it. Because I don't want to say, it doesn't even matter because you guys won't even just never mind. Don't even worry about it. I'm just saying that a lot of times when someone is struggling with being neurotic, it affects their life to a point where you may actually not have relationships because of this. You may not have a job because of this. You may have strained relationships with friendships because of this. That's all I'm going to say about this. The research is in the description. I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.